The dangers of Los Angeles are no longer a secret to anyone. Once considered the ultimate dream destination, a place where tourists could escape reality and immerse themselves in the glitz and glamour of Hollywood while everyday worries faded into the horizon. But today, that postcard-perfect image has transformed into something entirely different. What happens behind the scenes in this tourist mecca is something travel agencies will never tell you, but visitors continue to whisper about in hushed tones. And the most terrifying part is that many discover these truths when it's already too late, when the California dream becomes a waking nightmare they can't escape. I've spent months collecting testimonies from tourists, analyzing official data, and venturing into areas that no guidebook ever mentions. The reality is more disturbing than you could imagine. While millions of people continue to arrive each year, seduced by photographs of palm-lined boulevards and celebrity sightings, there exists an underworld of dangers lurking on every corner, behind every seemingly innocent smile, in every encounter that appears harmless but could change your life forever. The statistics you'll never see in tourism brochures tell a completely different story from what they promote. I'm not trying to scare you without reason. What I want is for you to know the 10 real risks that exist in Los Angeles. The same ones tourists discuss in whispers when they return home, but that no one dares to document completely. This is the uncomfortable truth about America's most famous entertainment destination, a truth that local authorities and major hotel conglomerates would prefer to keep hidden under layers of tourism marketing and rehearsed smiles. Imagine waking up in paradise and ending the day in hell. That's how Sarah's story began. A British tourist who arrived in Los Angeles with dreams of perfect vacation and ended up in a local hospital fighting to recover from something she never imagined. "I thought I was prepared for everything," she confessed to me through tears. "I had read guides, checked online recommendations, even purchased premium travel insurance. None of that mattered when the unthinkable happened." Her eyes, still bloodshot days after the incident, revealed trauma that went far beyond physical damage. The first risk that no one warns you about is the one that hides in plain sight. Property theft in Los Angeles is not an urban legend. It's a real threat that has affected thousands of tourists. The testimonies repeat with a frightening pattern. A tourist parks their rental car near a popular attraction, returns after a brief visit, and discovers their vehicle has been broken into, with all their valuables gone. The most disturbing part is how quickly and efficiently these crimes occur, often in broad daylight and in supposedly safe areas. Official data attempts to minimize the problem, but unofficial figures tell a different story. In the last 5 years, at least 4,500 tourists have reported having their vehicles broken into while visiting Los Angeles. The most recent case, occurring just 2 months ago, involved a family of 4 from Germany. They parked their rental car at Griffith Observatory for just 45 minutes. When they returned, all their luggage, passports, electronics, and irreplaceable vacation photos were gone. What started as an exciting day to see the Hollywood sign ended with hours at a police station and a ruined vacation. The most alarming thing, explained a police officer who requested anonymity, is that these thieves know exactly which cars belong to tourists. They look for rental company stickers or barcode tags, and they know tourists carry valuables and are less likely to report crimes or stay for court proceedings. This systematic targeting has become so sophisticated that some criminal groups focus exclusively on tourist areas, creating a pattern of victimization that authorities struggle to address effectively. Jennifer, an insurance claims specialist who works with many international tourists, confirms this reality. "We receive at least 15 claims a week from visitors who've had their belongings stolen from vehicles in LA. The pattern is always similar: popular tourist spots, daytime thefts, quick and efficient break-ins. But what the statistics don't show is the emotional impact. Having your passport, medications, or irreplaceable mementos stolen while on vacation can be devastating. The second risk is equally disturbing, but much less visible until it's too late. The homeless crisis in Los Angeles has reached proportions that most tourists aren't prepared for, and encounters can range from uncomfortable to dangerous. This isn't about demonizing vulnerable populations, but rather acknowledging a systemic failure that creates risky situations for unsuspecting visitors. Areas that appear in every tourist guide, Hollywood Boulevard, Venice Beach, downtown, are also home to some of the largest homeless encampments in the country. Michael, a Canadian tourist, still trembles when recalling his experience. We were walking near the Walk of Fame, an area I assumed would be completely safe given its popularity. Suddenly, a man approached my children, clearly experiencing a severe mental health crisis. He began screaming incoherently and following us. There were no police around, no security, nowhere to seek immediate help. What followed was a terrifying 10 minutes where Michael had to protect his family while trying to find safety. The most shocking part was how normalized this seemed to locals. People just walked around us like nothing was happening. Local authorities have confirmed that there's been an increase of 60% in confrontational incidents involving tourists and individuals experiencing homelessness and mental health crises in the past 3 years. The complexity of these situations has reached the point where some tour companies now train their guides on de-escalation techniques and altered routes to avoid certain areas at specific times of day. This is information that rarely appears in glossy travel brochures advertising the Hollywood dream. What tourists don't understand before arriving, explains a social worker who has spent 2 decades working in LA's Skid Row, is that our mental health and social service systems are completely overwhelmed. Many people who should be receiving treatment or support are instead on the streets, often in areas frequented by tourists. The city's response has been inadequate, and visitors can find themselves in situations they're not prepared to handle. The third danger lurks silently in the beautiful Southern California environment that draws so many visitors to Los Angeles. The environmental hazards, particularly air pollution and extreme heat, have claimed more lives than any tourism pamphlet would dare to mention. Los Angeles' notorious smog and increasingly frequent heat waves create a potentially deadly combination that many tourists underestimate until they experience health complications. Robert, a respiratory therapist who now works as an air quality safety consultant, shared alarming figures with me. Just in downtown LA and the Hollywood area, we've had to assist over 300 tourists suffering from severe respiratory distress in the past year. Not all were fortunate. Official statistics report between 20 and 30 annual emergency room visits by tourists for pollution-related acute respiratory issues, but Robert assures me the actual number could be triple that. The problem is that many popular tourist activities in LA involve extended outdoor exposure during the worst air quality hours, he continued. Hiking to the Hollywood sign, walking tours of Beverly Hills, waiting in line at theme parks, these all typically happen during midday when ozone levels peak. Add to that the fact that many tourists aren't acclimated to the heat, and you have a dangerous situation. This environmental reality is rarely communicated to visitors before they find themselves struggling to breathe in the California sun. The case of the Anderson family is particularly heartbreaking. During their vacation in the summer of 2023, their 8-year-old son with mild asthma experienced a severe attack after a day at Universal Studios during a heat wave with poor air quality. There were no warnings, no advisories, nothing to indicate we should take extra precautions, the father recounted through tears. By the time we realized what was happening, he was in serious distress. The boy spent 3 days in intensive care, and the family's dream vacation turned into a nightmare of hospital rooms and medical bills. The fourth risk manifests as a growing threat that has transformed how tourists experience Los Angeles at night. The nightlife dangers, particularly around popular entertainment districts, have evolved beyond simple concerns about overpriced drinks. Reports of drink spiking, coordinated theft rings targeting inebriated tourists, and rideshare scams have created a treacherous landscape for visitors looking to experience LA after dark. David, a former security manager at one of Hollywood's most exclusive nightclubs, revealed a disturbing pattern. There are groups that specifically target tourists. They can spot them instantly.
They look for people celebrating special occasions, those taking lots of photos, or anyone too openly amazed by their surroundings. According to David, these groups work in teams, with some members distracting targets while others execute thefts or set up more elaborate scams that might unfold over an entire evening. The consequences can be devastating. Last October, 3 tourists from Australia ended up stranded in a dangerous neighborhood after accepting a ride from what they thought was their legitimate rideshare driver outside a popular nightclub. The driver took their phones and wallets before abandoning them in an unfamiliar area. When they finally reached their hotel and reported the incident, they discovered thousands of dollars in fraudulent charges had already been made on their credit cards. A toxicologist who collaborated on several cases involving tourists explained, "What makes these incidents particularly concerning is that many victims don't report them out of embarrassment or because they don't want to spend their limited vacation time dealing with police reports. And when substances are involved, victims often have impaired memory of events, making investigation even more challenging." The fifth danger is perhaps the most unexpected for those visiting this entertainment capital. The movie industry illusions that draw millions to Los Angeles annually also create perfect conditions for sophisticated scams targeting those hoping to experience Hollywood magic. These range from fake celebrity home tours and non-existent film set visits to elaborate schemes promising auditions or background roles in productions. The particularly disturbing case of a family from Brazil highlights this risk. They paid $8,000 for what was promised to be an exclusive VIP experience, including a special guided tour of working studios, meetings with casting directors, and guaranteed background roles in a major production. Upon arrival, they discovered the entire package was fraudulent. The company didn't exist beyond its professional-looking website, and their contact disappeared completely after receiving payment. What makes these scams so effective, explained an investigator with the Los Angeles County Consumer Affairs Department, is that they exploit the emotional connection many people have with Hollywood. The desire to be part of that world, even briefly, can override normal caution. And the scammers are extremely sophisticated, with professional websites, fake reviews, and even temporary physical offices set up to appear legitimate. The financial losses from entertainment-related scams targeting tourists are estimated at over $15 million annually, with thousands of victims who have little recourse once they've returned to their home countries. The saddest cases, the investigator continued, involve young people who believe they're getting a legitimate opportunity to start an entertainment career. Some even move here based on these false promises, only to find themselves stranded without money or contacts. The sixth risk has become a growing problem affecting both tourists and residents: the transportation nightmares that can turn a dream vacation into a logistical disaster. Los Angeles' notorious traffic is just the beginning. Rental car scams, predatory towing, and a public transportation system that can be bewildering and occasionally dangerous for visitors create a perfect storm of mobility challenges. Carolina, an urban transportation specialist who has studied Los Angeles' infrastructure for a decade, shared troubling insights. "We've documented numerous cases where tourists were charged exorbitant fees for minor damage to rental cars that either didn't exist or was present before they took possession of the vehicle. The practice is common enough that it has its own nickname among industry insiders: tourist tax. These schemes take advantage of visitors' unfamiliarity with local regulations and their limited time to dispute charges. The authorities have implemented monitoring systems for rental companies, but the results are rarely published when unfavorable. It's a system designed to fail tourists," warned Carolina. The car rental industry in tourist-heavy cities like LA operates in a gray area where the pressure to generate additional revenue sometimes crosses ethical and legal boundaries. The experience of James, a business traveler from London, illustrates this problem perfectly. After returning his rental car in what he believed was perfect condition, he was charged $3,000 for undercarriage damage that wasn't visible during the standard inspection. When I questioned it, they produced photos that could have been of any vehicle and threatened to call the police when I refused to pay. I had a flight to catch and no time to dispute it properly. This type of predatory practice affects thousands of visitors annually, with limited options for recourse. The seventh danger is a reality increasingly common that has transformed many visitors' experiences: the natural disaster risks that are becoming more frequent and severe. While earthquakes have always been part of California's reality, climate change has intensified wildfires, mudslides, and extreme weather events, creating hazards that tourists may be completely unprepared to handle. In September last year, a group of tourists from Japan found themselves trapped in their vacation rental when rapidly spreading wildfires blocked evacuation routes in the hills north of Los Angeles. They had received no warnings, had no emergency supplies, and were unfamiliar with local emergency protocols. "It was the most terrifying experience of my life," shared Keiko, one of the survivors. "We could see the flames coming closer, the sky was orange, and we had no idea what to do or where to go." The problem is that most tourists don't check local emergency information before or during their visit, explained a disaster management expert. Hotels are supposed to have evacuation plans and safety information, but many vacation rentals don't provide these details. And when emergencies happen, communication often prioritizes local residents who know how to access alert systems. This information gap can leave tourists especially vulnerable when natural disasters strike. Emma, a tourist from Australia with asthma, experienced a severe respiratory crisis after spending several hours outdoors during a period when wildfire smoke blanketed Los Angeles. "Nobody warned me it could be dangerous." The hotel presented the hazy conditions as a minor annoyance, not a health risk. She ended up hospitalized for 3 days, with her trip ruined and facing substantial medical expenses that her insurance initially refused to cover, considering it a known risk not declared. The eighth risk is a financial danger that ruins vacations for thousands of tourists annually: the hidden costs and financial traps specifically targeting visitors. These go far beyond typical tourist markups or minor scams, extending to elaborate schemes that can leave travelers without savings in a foreign country, facing desperate situations with little institutional support. A particularly disturbing trend involves vacation rental scams. Carlos, a lawyer specializing in tourism, detailed the modus operandi. They create professional websites with spectacular properties at tempting prices that aren't absurdly low to avoid raising suspicions. They request substantial deposits and provide seemingly legitimate documentation. When the tourist arrives, they discover the property doesn't exist or belongs to someone who never put it up for rent. Financial losses from these types of fraud are estimated at over $18 million annually, with thousands of victims who have few options to recover their money once they've left the United States. The most frustrating thing, adds Carlos, is that many of these operations are known to authorities, but persist due to political connections or strategic bribes. This impunity feeds a cycle of increasingly bold scams. The experience of Daniel and his family perfectly illustrates this problem. After booking and paying in advance for a luxury beachfront villa to celebrate their parents' anniversary, they arrived in Los Angeles to discover that the address provided corresponded to a vacant lot. "We lost more than $6,000 and had to spend another $6,000 on emergency accommodation. The authorities treated us as if we were the naive ones, almost blaming us for falling for the scam." This victim-blaming attitude is common and discourages formal complaints. The ninth risk is a health threat that has gained importance in recent years: the medical system challenges that can turn a minor health issue into a financial catastrophe. The high cost of healthcare in the United States is well known, but what many tourists don't realize is how complicated navigating the system can be, especially in emergency situations where language barriers and unfamiliarity with procedures compound the stress. Dr. Gabriela Martinez, a specialist in international patient care, explains the consequences. "We regularly see tourists facing bills of thousands of dollars for treatments that would cost a fraction of that in their home countries. What's worse, they often receive unnecessary tests or procedures because some facilities view international patients as opportunities for maximizing billing. These practices rarely make headlines, but affect thousands of visitors annually." The most concerning aspect, according to the specialist, is the lack of transparent information provided to tourists. Many visitors have travel insurance, but don't understand its limitations. They assume they're fully covered, only to discover their policy has caps, exclusions, or requirements for pre-approval that weren't clear in the policy documents. This misunderstanding leaves tourists vulnerable to financial exploitation when they're at their most vulnerable. The case of Thomas, a tourist from Germany who suffered a seemingly minor fall while hiking in Runyon Canyon, demonstrates the severity of this issue. What should have been a simple emergency room visit for a few stitches turned into a medical odyssey, including unnecessary scans, specialist consultations, and a brief hospitalization, resulting in a bill exceeding $20,000. My insurance covered less than half, claiming the treatments were excessive and not medically necessary. I'm still paying off the debt a year later. The 10th and final risk is perhaps the most systemic and least addressed: the growing social inequality and its consequences for tourist safety. While visitors enjoy luxury hotels with extraordinary amenities, just a few miles away in Los Angeles' peripheral regions, informal settlements grow with precarious conditions and limited access to basic services. This disparity is not accidental, but the direct result of an extractive tourism development model. This disparity has created a breeding ground for social problems that eventually impact the tourist experience. Professor Miguel Torres, a sociologist who has studied the phenomenon for 2 decades, explains the connection. When an economy depends almost exclusively on tourism, but its benefits aren't distributed equitably, resentment builds. This, combined with limited opportunities for well-paid employment outside the tourism sector, pushes some toward illicit activities directed precisely against visitors. Statistics support this theory. Areas with the highest inequality indexes around Los Angeles also record higher rates of crimes against tourists, creating a vicious cycle that's difficult to break. It's a social time bomb, warns Torres. The current model is unsustainable in the long term, both ecologically and socially. But there's fierce resistance to any attempt at structural reform. Luis, a hotel worker with 15 years of experience in several luxury resorts, offers an insider's perspective. Many of us live in conditions tourists couldn't even imagine, sometimes without reliable access to clean water, while we serve guests who waste resources without thinking. It's not difficult to understand why some develop resentment. This underlying tension occasionally erupts in incidents that directly affect visitors. Despite these 10 real risks, millions of people continue to visit Los Angeles each year. Some have perfect experiences, others not so much. The question isn't whether you should visit this destination, but whether you're prepared to do so with full knowledge of what you might face. Information doesn't aim to discourage, but to empower, allowing decisions based on the complete reality, not just the sanitized version promoted by travel agencies. The truth is that Los Angeles, like any mass tourism destination, has its dark side. A side that promotional campaigns will never show, but that's present on every corner, on every beach, in every seemingly innocent smile.
This contrast between the paradise sold and the reality experienced is precisely what makes so many tourists return home with a sense of bewilderment, as if they had visited 2 completely different places. Sarah, the British tourist with whom I began this story, finally recovered after spending 12 days in a local hospital. What hurts the most, she told me as she packed to return home, isn't the physical aftermath or the money spent on treatments. It's knowing that everything could have been avoided if someone had told me the complete truth about what I might find here. Her experience, far from unique, reflects that of hundreds of tourists whose stories never make headlines. And that's precisely the reason for this documentary, to tell the complete truth, unfiltered, so you can decide. Because the real danger isn't the risks themselves, but not knowing they exist until it's too late. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to protecting your safety, health, and finances in an unfamiliar environment where you might be particularly vulnerable.
This analysis doesn't seek to demonize Los Angeles or deny its many genuine attractions. Its beaches remain spectacular, its weather warm and welcoming, its cultural offerings diverse and exciting. Many tourists enjoy wonderful experiences without encountering any of these dangers. But ignoring the risks doesn't make them disappear, and preparation can make the difference between a vacation memorable for the right reasons and a traumatic experience that will haunt you long after returning home. If you've experienced any of these dangers in Los Angeles or have similar stories to share, leave them in the comments. Your testimony could help other travelers avoid similar situations. And if you found this video revealing, share it with someone planning to visit this destination. Not to discourage them, but so they go prepared.
Because information ultimately can be the difference between a perfect vacation and a tropical nightmare. This has been an analysis of the dark truth of Los Angeles and the 10 real risks tourists keep talking about. A truth few dare to tell, but everyone should know. A truth that doesn't aim to ruin dreams, but to protect them, allowing you to enjoy the best this destination has to offer while staying alert to its hidden dangers. Los Angeles will continue to be one of the world's most popular tourist destinations, and for good reason. But like any earthly paradise, it has its serpents. Knowing them doesn't ruin the garden. It allows you to fully enjoy it without falling into its traps. In the end, that's the true freedom every traveler deserves. The freedom to choose with full knowledge, to venture with eyes wide open, to marvel without naivety. Because the best adventures aren't those where nothing goes wrong, but those where you were prepared for any eventuality.
And in that spirit, I invite you to discover Los Angeles. Not the one in the brochures, but the real one, with all its beauty and all its dangers, with all its magic and all its traps. The real Los Angeles, in all its contradictory and fascinating complexity.